Let's have a political look at the political roundup of the week.
Yes, let's do indeed. We've got a fantastic guest now, Bill Bowkett, who is a political commentator with Young Voices UK. Very good to see you.
Very good morning.
Good to meet you. I think we've spoken a few times.
Yes, virtually, but finally in the flesh in the glitzy new TalkTV studios.
I'm glad you think they're glitzy.
Yes, very much so.
They are, aren't they?
They're not bad.
I was here in the when it was talkRADIO studios, and you've really done the place up there, as they would say.
We've got new lights, new cameras.
Yeah.
What do you think of this?
It's very hot.
Very it is.
It is
warm,
because I can feel it on my back.
It is warm, but yes, welcome.
Yes, we're thrilled that you're here, actually. So, shall we start by talking about Keir Starmer? We were saying earlier on that this is just a marvellous feast because, of course, he's been allegedly hypocritical in that he's been calling for Boris Johnson to resign, Rishi Sunak to resign, and now it transpires that things are not altogether rosy in the Starmer camp.
No, I think it completely debunks his argument. I think if he was to release this memo that has been exposed in the Mail on Sunday this morning, then he wouldn't have to make it in the first place. I mean, it is quite a damn indictment because what it says in this particular instance is that Starmer claimed to have, taken away, that it was spontaneous, that I took, a couple minutes of my time just to have a curry, to socialise with my peers.
And then he left.
And then, yes, exactly, when it's actually been turned out that there was a whole rota involved, involving Keir Starmer, but also Angela Rayner, the deputy leader as well. And you must also remember, at the time when Boris Johnson received that fixed penalty notice for that surprise birthday party, when he was ambushed with a cake, his argument was that I was there for 9 minutes, I was in the middle of work, but he still received, a £150 fine. Yeah. So if this is going to transpire in this particular instance, then there's a very good chance that he himself will receive a fine as well.
Do you think his role as Labour leader could be under risk if he does face any fines?
Definitely. It's coming from his own party as well. You have Diane Abbott, for instance, speaking to, obviously saying that, it's putting him in a very difficult situation. You've got other members of his party as well, and of constant pressure, of course, from the Conservative Party as well. I think we can deliberate as much as we want about what this could amount to, whether it will result in Keir Starmer having to resign, apologise, correct the record, or so on and so forth. But we have to wait to this inquiry by Durham Constabulary is concluded.
Just in terms of the elections, we saw 500 seats being lost to the Conservatives. Just what's your view on Keir Starmer? Clearly, this is a man who's not stupid. He was DPP, who's director of public prosecutions. He should know what he's doing, and yet he doesn't get cut through. Is that true across all age groups, do you think?
I think so. At least, I'm 23 years old, speaking to young Labour activists, they don't feel that Starmer, is the right man. They just don't seem as exciting. I think I would say he's much more competent than Jeremy Corbyn was in, regaining the centre ground, and we saw in those elections that Labour did do better in places like London and the South.
And it's just those working voters. That's where it seems Labour's struggling to cut through.
It is. And actually a lot of the support that comes from Wales and Scotland doesn't really come from Keir Starmer, but it comes from the likes of Mark Drakeford or Anwar Sawa as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, you are getting the picture off the back of the local elections that no party really could claim a huge success. Boris Johnson now looking to try to change that, to try to see if he can win over the voters that perhaps he wasn't able to win over in the local elections. Hopefully that changes come the general elections. And you could argue that he's going to do this with the Queen's speech and that Brexit bill bonanza he said to be preparing to announce. Just tell us a bit more about that.
So this is a story in today's Sunday Express, where Boris Johnson's given an interview to Dave Williamson, their political editor, saying that there's going to be a new Brexit procurement bill which is going to get rid of £1 billion worth of Brussels red tape. So hopefully, in that sense,
and how will that work?
So I think in this particular instance, it's around checks. I think GDPR is a particular focus as well, and then kind of within that as well, there's going to be other forms of legislation around, for instance, supporting the high streets as well.
So is there going to be something about procurement that you have to sort of source stuff locally, nationally from the United Kingdom?
Yes,
right.
I think that's how it's going to happen, and I think hopefully over the next coming weeks and months we have a bit more clarity. But I think this is to kind of just rally up the base after, you know, the debacle.
But I mean, he should have done this right at the beginning, shouldn't he? The whole point of leaving was to take back control. I saw it on many buses. Take back control, to be autonomous. The fact is, you should be allowed to have a global Britain where we compete.
Back to go to the NHS.
Yeah,
well, that was
all that stuff. £350 million. Exactly right. And this, to me, seems like they're using this now as a political device.
They have to. I think this is what was labelled at the time as Operation Red Meat, because there's a lot of discontent, you know, not only within the Tory base of Boris Johnson's leadership, but also of his backbench MPs. So in this sense, it almost seems like this bill to kind of rally up the base is to kind of appease them and hopefully, you know, to sort the mess that is kind of evolving around Brexit, like also the Northern Ireland Protocol, things around trade, the supply chains kind of caused from the war in Ukraine as well. And I think in that particular instance, I think with the local election results and also the cost of living crisis as well, we're going to have a bit more clarity from this government as exactly what they're going to stand for, how exactly Boris Johnson is going to bounce back from the local election results, and hopefully kind of resolve his leadership.
I mean, I think people who watch this show have more idea than the Prime Minister. You know, they're saying ditch national insurance rise. They're saying actually cut the green levies, make sure that we actually get cheap energy and start fracking. It doesn't seem massively complicated. Just in terms of Northern Ireland, though, those results very significant, and many of the papers saying this is now pushing the unionist cause, it may threaten the integrity of the United Kingdom. Do you read it like that, given that actually the other parties, when you amalgamate their vote, was very strong?
And not just that, DUP saying that they will not take part in a power-sharing government with Sinn Féin. So it doesn't sound like it's going to be that plain sailing when it comes to that unified Northern Ireland and unified Ireland.
No, it's not, and that's what you get with a kind of consultational democracy like, you know, Northern Ireland, very different to the rest of the United Kingdom. I don't think necessarily this result necessarily stems from the fact that there's going to be a border vote. I mean, yesterday you had Mary Lou McDonald speaking, you know, to TalkTV, saying that, you know, she wants a referendum in the next 5 years on the question of Irish independence. But you must remember that there are other factors that kind of mitigate it around this remarkable result, you must say. You know, there are local issues in Northern Ireland. You know, it's been heavily hit by the coronavirus pandemic. We've also got the Northern Ireland Protocol, which is overhanging, having an effect on prices in supermarkets.
Do people there really have the appetite for a referendum? Is that what you're pointing to?
I'm not quite sure, because it's the thing over there is that it's very split at this moment of time. You've got the Alliance Party that was also doing very well as well, and they're seen as like a neutral party. They don't take a stand on
17
the
seats,
issue. 17 seats, exactly. So I think, you know, we as commentators, as journalists, you know, we can read into these results and ultimately think, well, this is the end of the union as we know it. But it's going to be a long, arduous process, and ultimately the big focus is not around independence in Northern Ireland. It's getting a functional government, you know, in place in Stormont, and hopefully get the Northern Ireland Protocol sorted.
Yeah, talking about that with the Northern Ireland Protocol, would we be any closer in getting any kind of resolution there with this result?
I'm not quite sure if that's the case. I mean, it would kind of react in this instance for you know, Liz Truss today, you know, speaking to Sunday Times, saying that they're going to really press on Brussels to, you know,
what now? Finally,
you
know, what have they been doing
after so long? But if they not, they have to trigger ultimately after.
You see, 16, that's my view. I think you have to now say we are going to trigger it unless you give us concessions, and now, because at the moment you're seeing Northern Ireland is being hived off.
Well, David, if they do trigger Article 16, how would that affect Northern Ireland?
Well, the point is that actually Northern Ireland would feel a bit more loved by the rest of the United Kingdom for a start. It would stop the border in the Irish Sea, and I think the point is that actually we don't have free trade. But what's your thought on that?
Well, it's also important to say that the entire protocol wouldn't be scrapped.
Indeed.
It would be primary legislation, so it would be parts of the protocol, maybe around things like, I think, red meat is, to pardon the pun, I think is one of the key sticking points that's been having a lot of issues that we saw even before the war in Ukraine. I remember back in September, October time, issues resolving around that.
I mean, it is so complicated, the whole Northern Ireland question.
I'm a political journalist, and even I can't get my head around this.
But I think it must be very difficult if you are living in Northern Ireland and feeling you have been abandoned, and if you are a part of the United Kingdom feeling abandoned. Thank you so much for coming in, Bill.
Bill Bowkett,
you've been fantastic.
With
Thank
Young
you so
Voices.
much.
Really, 23 years old.
I know.
You've got a baby.
But he knows so much.
You know a lot.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill.